Awareness is the first step toward change. Eric Berne wrote these words in Transactional Analysis in 1961. They were simple, direct, and characteristic of the man who spent his life asking one persistent question: what happens between people when they talk? It was a question that would guide him to develop one of the most influential and accessible psychological models of the 20th century: transactional analysis. Berne never claimed to have solved the human condition. He wasn't building a grand theory of mind like Freud, nor redefining consciousness. Instead, his work focused on something immediate and observable: the conversations people have every day, the patterns they fall into, the roles they play, and the life scripts that quietly direct their choices. Berne trained as a psychoanalyst, but he grew dissatisfied with the way traditional therapy obscured behavior behind layers of interpretation. He believed psychology should be understandable, not only to practitioners, but to those who needed it. In 1961, he described transactional analysis as a theory of personality and a systematic psychotherapy for personal growth and change. The emphasis was on clarity, structure, and practical insight. He wanted people to understand themselves without needing a translator. This search for clarity led him to his most foundational idea: that human personality is not a single, unified structure, but a shifting interplay of what he called ego states. Berne explained, each person has 3 ego states: parent, adult, and child. These states influence how we think, feel, and behave. The parent ego state contains the attitudes and behaviors internalized from authority figures. It can be nurturing or critical. The child ego state is the source of creativity, spontaneity, and emotion. But it can also harbor irrational fears and reactive behavior carried over from early life. Between them stands the adult, the rational, objective part of us that processes information and makes decisions based on the present. This structure gave people a lens for understanding why they might act like a responsible adult in one moment and a frightened child in another. It explained the oscillation between critical, protective, rebellious, or vulnerable states, not as inconsistency, but as different parts of the self speaking. In 1964, Berne published Games People Play, which introduced the concept of psychological games. He wrote, "Games are repetitive, unconscious patterns of interaction that people use to fulfill psychological needs, often at the expense of genuine connection. People did not play these games deliberately. They learned them early. They met emotional needs, and they fit into larger life scripts. Some were mild, others destructive, but all predictable. Naming the games allowed people to step outside of them." Berne deliberately used humor, writing that humor is a powerful tool for breaking down defenses and fostering connection. Through this lens, relationships were no longer chaotic. Patterns existed, and patterns could be changed. Berne introduced the idea of strokes. Strokes are units of recognition that people give and receive. They are essential for psychological well-being. Recognition matters as much as food or shelter. A person deprived of strokes becomes anxious, lonely, or desperate. People may chase recognition in unhealthy ways, even playing games to obtain it. This naturally led to the concept of life scripts. Berne described them as unconscious life plans formed in childhood that dictate how we live our lives. Scripts influence choices, relationships, conflicts, and even failures, not through fate, but expectation. Yet scripts are not destiny. Awareness loosens their grip. Once a person becomes conscious of a script, they can begin rewriting it. Berne defined autonomy as the ability to live freely and authentically, free from the constraints of unconscious scripts and games. Autonomy was not perfection nor emotional purity. It was simply living with awareness, choosing behavior rather than reacting automatically. He connected autonomy with three human capacities: awareness, spontaneity, and intimacy. Intimacy, he wrote, was the opposite of games. Intimacy is the ability to connect with others on a deep and authentic level. It is the antidote to games. Through TA, people discovered that problems were often patterns, and patterns could be altered with insight, practice, and support. Berne saw therapy as collaborative. He wrote, "Therapeutic contracts are agreements between therapist and client that outline goals and expectations. They are essential for progress." Effective communication was critical. He explained, "Effective communication requires clarity, honesty, and the ability to stay in the adult ego state." Adult-to-adult conversation grounded dialogue, clarified boundaries, and fostered constructive interaction. Healthy boundaries are essential for maintaining autonomy and preventing manipulation. Feedback, too, had its place. Feedback is essential for growth. It provides the information we need to change and improve. Berne believed deeply in group therapy. Group therapy provides a unique opportunity for individuals to learn about themselves through interaction with others. The group acted as a mirror, revealing patterns of behavior. The group provides a mirror for self-reflection and a laboratory for experimenting with new behaviors. People learned not by being told who they were, but by seeing themselves reflected in others. In The Mind in Action, Berne explored intuition. Intuition is the ability to sense what is happening beneath the surface of social interactions. Intuition was not mystical. It was the subtle observation of tone, posture, pauses, and inconsistencies, revealing more than words alone. Berne trusted that people could learn to recognize and act upon these cues. Berne examined the unconscious patterns that govern relationships. Relationship scripts are unconscious patterns that dictate how we interact with others. Understanding them is key to healthy relationships. He also described the drama triangle, consisting of victim, persecutor, and rescuer, warning that people often switch roles in unhealthy relationships. Awareness of these roles enabled stepping out of them and returning to the adult ego state, allowing for healthier choices. Therapy, for Berne, was structured and purposeful. Its ultimate goal was to help individuals achieve autonomy, intimacy, and spontaneity. This triad represented freedom to choose, the capacity to connect, and the ability to be fully alive. Berne believed that when these qualities emerged, people could live authentically, unconstrained by old scripts and freed from manipulative games. Eric Berne did not build a new empire of psychological theory. He clarified something always present: the way people speak, act, and relate, moment by moment, transaction by transaction. His ideas endure because they are concrete, practical, and accessible. They demonstrate that transformation begins not in theory, but with action, with a single step taken consciously in the adult ego state. And with the words that began his journey, awareness is the first step toward change. I'm grateful for the moments shared in discourse. May our paths cross again in the fullness of time.